He's given my pal here some advice.
And also a woman who calls herself a workaholic talks about that emotional tug of war and how she resolved it.
Oh, Mandy, wait.
The majority of American women go back to work after they give birth. Today, 3 women who've gone back tell of their joys and frustrations while on maternity leave and give Liz a few tips in the process.
Plus, a close-up look at one workaholic who made the decision to stay home. Find out why she's done it this morning on AM Philadelphia.
Hi, everybody. We're live from City Line Avenue on this Monday morning. I'm Wally Kennedy.
And I'm Elizabeth Starr, and topping our headliners this morning. Bruce Springsteen has told members of his longtime group, the E Street Band, that he won't be using them on his next album. A spokesman for the Boss says that Bruce had long conversations with all the band members and told them to go ahead with their own solo efforts. There are no indications of who will be playing on the next Springsteen album or even when it will be coming out.
Well, Liz, we'll be talking a lot about maternity leave for the rest of the show, and one actress is about to take a very long leave. We told you on Friday that actress Kelly McGillis is expecting a child next spring. Well, doctors told McGillis that she has to give up her year-long commitment with a Shakespearean acting company and spend the rest of her pregnancy off her feet. This is McGillis's first child.
And on that note, here's an interesting statistic that was supplied to me by the Girl Scouts. 57% of American women are working who have children. And they say that by 1995, 66% of all preschool children will have their mothers working outside the home. That means that every family, I know you've gone through it in yours, and I'm about to, will face this emotional tug of war that we call maternity leave. So we're going to start for some advice with a woman from Mount Laurel, New Jersey, who called herself a workaholic.
Smiling at him again. Another zebra. Rocking horse.
To put this scene into perspective, you have to picture what Denise Chaffee says about her own life just a year ago. She was commuting every day into Philadelphia from her home in South Jersey and had a career job she loved at Jefferson Hospital, interfacing the computer operation with the human resources. She knew she wanted a family, and at 31 years old, it was time to start. But she also highly identified with her work life.
I was very career-oriented, and I think I got a lot of my self-satisfaction, my self-esteem from my job. I just poured everything I had into work, and it was really exciting for me, and I think I went a lot further than I had ever anticipated going coming out of college with a liberal arts degree.
Denise's plan was a short maternity leave. Her boss agreed to hold her position, and she'd return on a transition schedule of 3 days a week. But just one day back at work,
I realized that my clients are important, my work was important, it was very valuable, but is it more valuable than my son? Would I rather be doing this knowing he's someplace else with someone else living his life? And at the time I just couldn't, and even now, 7 months later, I can't reconcile that.
If you had been told 5 years ago that this is what your life was going to be like, what would you have said?
I just didn't think I'd be happy if I weren't working, and working intensely. That was my life, and I loved it, and I didn't think I would really like anything else.
except for working 1 month on that 3-day schedule till the boss could find a replacement. Denise spent the whole first 7 months of her son Brian's life at home raising him. There were economic sacrifices, certainly, but she surprised herself at the intensity of her desire to completely change her plans and priorities around this little guy.
When I was going to my clients, of course you hear stories, and so went out on maternity leave, came back, and within a week she was gone. I would think, that is so awful. She must have known she was going to do that. It's like she really took advantage of the company. She would leave her job for 6 weeks up to 3 months, and the whole department would be in a situation where they're basically trying to maintain status quo on a shortage of resources, and then she comes back and quits. So I was almost terrified to resign because of that. And then I realized, well, if I wait, all I'm doing is just postponing what I know I want to do. And I really expected people to be irate, just not very tolerant. of what I'd done, and I was surprised that everyone was really understanding.
In some ways, Denise handles homemaking life like a freelance career. She's her own boss, and she still schedules her time.
So every Thursday morning, I take Brian to his swimming class, so that's like a standing meeting. Other than that, I put in a lot of what he does for the first time. Like on the 3rd, he did his Indian call. That's like, oh, 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 when he does that.
Denise admits that she's one of the lucky women where the cut in pay doesn't jeopardize the family finances completely. And there are 2 other important issues. Brian's an easy baby to spend time with, and that's made the time with him fun as opposed to frustrating. Also, there's the fact that her husband, Michael, was comfortable with the decision, too. Yet she suspects that her new career doesn't have the conversation value that her fast-track life might have held for him.
I'm very boring. He tells me that. Yeah, we joke about it. He comes home and I'll start to tell him what I did today, and compared to his lifestyle and his work and his career, it's all trivial. But I try and balance that. I try and get out and do things, see people, have other topics of conversation, and I try to not go on and on and on about every little detail. Something else that's really different is trying to figure out what I'm going to do with all these. This is my interview suit, and I haven't worn that in a few years now. It's almost a shame, you know. Maybe I could sell them or something. I don't know. Will they still be in style in a couple of years when I'm ready to go back to work? Who knows? I remember going to parties and women would be sitting there talking about babies, and I would just think, oh no, I can't do this. I have got to work. There's no way. And here I am now, and I can go to a party and sit and talk about babies and think it's very exciting. But you have to live it. You have to be able to understand it.
So that is Denise's decision. She's comfortable with it. She chose to stay home with her children, and many, many women do. However, statistics tell us they are not in the majority. We are very pleased to have with us this morning 4 women, all of whom, 3 of whom have already wrestled with it, one of whom, a very familiar face, I might add, who's about to wrestle with it. This whole question of maternity leave, going back to work, how you juggle all these things in the air. Please welcome Nancy Phila. She is a vision in turquoise. Second child is on the way, due this coming June, Nancy? Mm-hmm. Okay. And to her left is Julia Hathaway. She's already had number 2. She is an attorney at law. She has gone back to work, and we'll talk to her in just a moment about her kids. Jean Marzolo, she's sitting here kind of looking at this philosophically. She's written a book about it called Your Maternity Leave, but she's dealt with all this stuff because your kids are teenagers. What do you know, right? But you've really done your homework on this whole thing about what women do. And last but not least, a very familiar, very pregnant Liz Starr, who as of this particular day is what, about 3 weeks away?
Less.
Okay.
Any day now.
Okay, my friend, sit back and listen to what those who have walked the path before you have to say, and then we'll talk to you.
I'm all ears. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to learn and listen.
I know you got some ambivalence about it. Okay, Nancy. Here's Nancy. Used to wait on us on Fridays down the street on City Line Avenue. The food service is your, if I can use the cliche, thing. You want to be, what, ultimately a chef?
Dietitian.
Dietitian, okay. Baby number 1 is how old?
She'll be a year next Saturday.
Okay, and you've got number 2 on the way in June.
Mm-hmm.
Did baby number 1 get in the way of your educational desires? Back burner?
Yeah, sort of. When I had to give up a semester because she was due in November, so right there I lost time at school. But also, I wanted to have children. I was getting to the point where, you know, I was approaching my 30th birthday, so I also had to have the kids.
Okay, do you all feel, I mean, not if I'm hitting a nerve here, is the biological clock ticking? Is this something that everybody kind of feels, if I don't do it now, I can't do it now? Is that the way you felt, Julia?
No, not really.
No?
Only that time-wise, career-wise, children's-wise, I was having my children before I felt my biological clock was telling me to. My first child was at 27, my second child at 32. I didn't feel I was being pressured on either one of them.
What determined how long you were out on maternity leave? The checkbook?
Yes, and also the fact that I had to go back when a spot opened or I would have lost my position.
Did you go back when you wanted to go back,
No.
or was it too soon?
It was too soon.
If you had your druthers, what would have been a good time?
Probably a few more months, maybe 4 months I would have been out, but I had to go back after 2 months.
That's really the point, isn't it? That the work world is trying to accommodate the person who wants to get on the mommy track for enough time to launch the baby and to feel some confidence that you've done it right, but you didn't have that leisure.
No.
Well, okay, Julia, in your particular case, you're an attorney. Did you have a little bit more control over the time that you were off?
No, I had
No?
exactly 3 months.
3? Is
In
that
order to
standard
secure-
operating policy for your law firm?
Well, I work for the county. I'm an assistant district attorney.
Okay.
And that's standard. You have 3 months from the day the baby's born. You have exactly 3 months to come back and have the position that you had when you left. During that 3 months, your benefits, as far as medical benefits, maintain. After 3 months, they do not. So if you stay 3.5 months, you've lost it.
Did you feel, though, okay, you stayed away 3 months, did you feel like Nancy that maybe 4 months would have been better? Or was 3 months
would
okay?
have been nice. 4 months would have been nice. It wasn't critical, but 4 months would have been nice.
Okay. Now, Jean, I teased you before, but your kids are teenagers, but you've written a book about this whole thing. Is there... It's different with each family, it's different with each woman. It's certainly, God knows, it's different with each checkbook. But is there a time at which most women who have returned to the workforce say, yeah, that's about it. That's about the median.
It really varies. You know, the experts would like women to stay home 6 months to a year at least with a new baby. They think that's best for the baby. But when I interviewed women for this book, I found that really, you know, it depends on the child care they can arrange. It depends on their finances. A lot of women, it's okay to go back at 3 months, especially if they have part-time return. That's something that women really love, because a lot of women are really interested in their careers and they want to stay with their job, stay on top of it. Part-time return is great. It really varies. A lot of women want to stay home as long as they possibly can, and there's a big guilt factor here, because some of the best companies will give up to, say, IBM gives up to 3 years of unpaid leave, which is fantastic.
IBM
Which means they'll hold your job?
Yes. But you see, now you've got to decide if you want to stay out of the labor force for 3 years, because can you really keep up with it?
Yeah, that's a whole other issue.
Some of those career women can be the most guilty.
I'll tell you what, okay, we'll talk about that guilt, and we'll also talk to my friend here who has been working, what, since you were 19 or 20?
Oh, sure, right out of college, and then it's 17 years straight since college.
Any misgivings? Well, I'll tell you what, hold that thought. You understand, we got a break, 2 minutes and 5 seconds. We'll be back, we'll find out. A very real, and certainly on this program, a very pressing issue is the issue of maternity leave. Liz Starr sits next to me, as she has for the last 5 years, but come in a week or two, or maybe even sooner, that's not going to be the case for a while.
And I'm having an identity crisis.
What's the, okay, if you could look in, if you...
And they're laughing.
Okay, and I want them to talk to you, and I want them to solve your identity crisis if that's possible. If you could look in the crystal ball 6 months from now or a year from now, what would be the question that right now you want answered most, that you'd like to know?
How will I be able to put it all together? I'm not going to be anybody's idea of the super mom, in the sense that I will never be identified as a great homemaker. I mean, I can make dinner, but I'm not a cook.
Yeah.
You know, and so the super mom syndrome of needing to have the house, beautiful house, and the career too, and the perfect happy baby. I just want the happy baby and and a husband who still loves me, and a career that I can manage. I don't worry about the house, beautiful part of it. But on the other hand, there's a kind of social pressure I'm feeling about that, even to have the little bit of time we are going to have at home together, that I've got to be June Cleaver. And, you know, I identify more with the fellas from 3 Men and a Baby. You know, they had decided they wanted to raise a child, and they were going to be parents. But Tom Selleck didn't stop being an architect. The baby went to the job with him, but nobody expected him to be June Cleaver.
Okay, but the question, let's point out that Steve Mashinsky, your husband, is not exactly Ward Cleaver either. I mean, I think that you are both kind of modern-looking people. Okay, that's the question. Ladies, supermoms, station wagons with luggage roofs and houses in the suburbs and kids in the back seat. If anything gives, what gives?
The house.
The house?
Definitely.
I think people feel really comfortable. If you invite other working parents over to your house, and your house is a little messy, you're more likely to be invited to their house.
Yeah. How about you, Julia? What gives?
You have to not be concerned about what other people think, what other people think you should be. That's got to go out the window. Forget what your mother thinks you should be, your mother-in-law thinks you should be, your friends think you should be. You decide what your priorities are. My priority clearly is not the house. It's my job and my children. And
what about your husband?
Well, he fits in there somewhere, poor thing.
Yes, well, no, wait a minute. There's a whole issue there. Is he a child or is he your job?
He's there, and quite frankly, he does get the third string. And I had these two children, and there is somewhat of a guilt. You're home, you're at work all day, you come home, and you want to pour into your children. And you look to your husband as being, oh, he's mature, he understands, he'll wait till they go to bed.
Nancy's shaking her head, no.
That type of thing, and he's very good. And we try to do things as a family. But it's clearly a pull, and you only have so many hours in a day.
Nancy, how about you?
No, I'm just saying that I feel like somehow I should be able to do it. Like right now, my house, it just looks terrible. You know, I'm trying to keep up with school. I'm trying to keep up my grades, and you know, I have this part-time job. But I feel like I should be able to do it.
And you're in the first trimester of a pregnancy,
right? Well, I'm very sick too with this.
Oh, boy.
But no,
Oh,
but
man.
I still feel like somehow I should be able to do it.
Does he?
It bothers me.
Okay, all three of you have been through it to one degree or another. Has he said, oh, you know, I really hate to say this, but, you know, I'm feeling kind of left out. You know, you got the baby, you got your work, you got this, you got that, and I'm kind of lost. Have you dealt with that at all with your respective husbands, any of you?
Well, there are times that my husband will say, when's there time for me?
Right.
And, you know, I don't know when there's time for me. Somehow it fits in and it works out. You have to be very flexible.
Yeah,
and constantly be making changes and rearranging things.
Through it all, you just have to remember to appreciate each other, because I think that's what happens. We don't see each other much, but I think sometimes you just feel like you're trying so hard, you're not even getting it together, and maybe you're not appreciated, and that's one important thing too.
Is sharing the responsibility, changing the dirty diapers,
have to do
feeding
that.
the baby, that's not even an issue, right?
No, that happens, and that has to happen.
I mean,
it doesn't happen in all families, though, because a big trap I think that working mothers fall into is that they're home during their maternity leave, so they become the expert with the baby.
Mm-hmm.
The husband's going back to work. So therefore, they become the ones who take care of the baby in the evenings and on the weekends and during vacations. So right from the beginning, you have to respect your husband's ability to do everything but breastfeed and to let him
Yes,
bond
and we're working
as
on
much
that.
as you do, right from day one.
Okay, let us take a break. We'll come back and we'll wrap things up, try to get some gems of wisdom here about a very real issue in the lives of every working mother. We're talking to four different women, one of whom is very familiar, and three of whom have been nice enough to join us this morning at AM Philadelphia about this whole issue of maternity leave, the mother who stays home, the feelings of that person who works every day of the week and sits at home and watches the television and says, I think I should be there instead of here. Is that a concern?
I'll tell you, we live in a real fast-track world, all of us. I mean, whether you were a bartender at a great restaurant, you had lots of people contact, I've got lots of people contact, lawyers, an author who writes at home, but you can make it happen when you want to. And the isolation of what will happen when it's me and an infant, who I know that I have this indispensable job and responsibility, which I would never give up in terms of getting him launched. But on the other hand, it's 4 months of we don't have these kind of conversations.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as I was saying during the break, I get a sore throat and I'm home for a day or two. I go nuts. The people here get mad at me because I kind of work sick unless I'm on death's doorstep, because I go crazy. I mean, I need a wet hose or something. Yeah. How do you deal with the non-adult contact, except with your mates? The world of daytime television and Pampers and Gerber baby food and, you know, other kids, and not lightening intellectual conversations.
I know that I could not stay home. I mean, I did it for the few months when I was home with her, and as much as I feel like ideally wouldn't it be nice if I could stay home, I feel like somehow I myself have to do something with myself. You know, make something of myself,
Julia,
learn, go to school.
Well, I would want to return to work, but I never really felt that lull. I was very busy those 3 months that I was home.
Yeah.
I wasn't totally out of touch. I could get calls from the office several times a week. I would take the baby into the office, show my new baby off. I did not feel out of touch with the outside world. Now, I was very confident to just pick up the diaper bag, pick up the baby, and go, and I did. I wasn't stuck at home with diapers. The baby went where I went, and I didn't have that isolated feeling, and I was in contact
But you
with
made
work
it
a lot.
happen.
Oh, yes. You have to make it happen.
Here's what we're going to do.
Stay in touch with the office. But the thing is, I just want to say that the women that I talk to, they all said, if some of them who had done it before, so they didn't relax enough at home and take the time to treasure their babies. And that was the main piece of advice they gave.
Now I've got less than a minute. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Piece of advice. Your piece of advice to Liz is what, Nancy?
Oh my goodness. I guess sort of what Jean just said, enjoy the time with the baby that you have, because you'll probably never have that time again where it's just you and the baby, because after that everything else comes back into play.
Julia, your piece of advice to Liz is what?
To ease your time coming back to work, make sure you have daycare, childcare that you are not just comfortable with, but your child is getting something extra with while you're not with them.
And Jean, how about you?
I would say start on a Wednesday or a Thursday, not on a Monday. It's a very wrenching separation.
Okay, just in case you forget any of this, we are making a tape of it, and when you go on maternity leave, we'll be sending the tape to your house.
I'll study it.
Thank you. You're a good sport. And to the 3 women who've joined us this morning to talk about the very real and the very personal issue of daycare and maternity leave and how their husbands deal with all this, we thank you one and all. Stay with us as A in Philadelphia continues.